welcome to 15-Minute Story. This is the second ever 15-minute story, and it's all about people's stories about Jesus, how they encountered Jesus, and just awesome stories of God's guidance through people's lives. Today I have with me Michael Krupka, a great friend.
Hello.
Met him 2 years ago, living at Harding together, and he is just someone that super wise. People just love being around him. He's been described to me as being like, his presence is like putting on a sweater. Like, that's high praise. So Michael today, he's got awesome stories to share, and I've heard him say these stories in the dorm before, and just so many awesome stories that God has led him on. So, Michael, first question: how have you seen God shape you to trust in Him more?
Well, that one has probably a whole lot of different ways that it really has happened, but I'd say some of the most obvious things is, or would be, having various circumstances that I didn't think would work out very well, work out perfectly, absolutely magnificently, and always due to stuff that wasn't of our own actions. It oftentimes would just be something that happened serendipitously, so it could seem, but it really wouldn't be. It would absolutely be God working in it, and it would be something like one of the stories that I've told you about during my last 2 summers working abroad or in Colorado.
Yeah, so Michael, the past 2 summers, has been in Peru for how long? 6 weeks?
I did a month each summer.
So a month each summer in Peru, and then the rest of the summer doing trek in Colorado. And so me and Michael talked about this. It is an awesome story. So Michael, take me to Peru. Exactly, I guess, just what went down in Peru that made you see, I guess, God in a new way, and to trust Him and just be like, wow, like, this is obviously God working.
So I've just been blessed with the opportunity to go, like you said, to Peru twice with Harding Spanish Department. And really it was something that I wasn't expecting to get to do at all. I just kind of actually got there sort of based off of probably God just telling me to go. That's the way that I like to describe it. I was a freshman Spanish major, and I one day was trying to think of things to do during the summer. I didn't think I was going to get the job I wanted to get, and it was early April. We were doing spring sing practice, and suddenly I get this idea pop into my head: ask about the Peru trip. And so I asked about the Peru trip, went to all the professors that I thought would know about the Peru trip, and lo and behold, there was a Peru trip. I didn't really know anything about it, and they actually ended up explaining it to me, and I signed up that night and ended up going.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so that was just a super neat, definitely God working there, wanting to make me go down and work for Him in Peru. And one of my favorite stories during my time there is one about this woman that I met during my second summer in Peru. And she's an awesome lady, very intelligent, very well educated, and I guess I've got to give us the introduction to the actual story and get things started the right way. So we were passing out flyers for this church conference we were going to be having, where we were just inviting anybody and everybody to come into the church that we were working with in Lima, Peru, and just listen to a preacher talk about, that year it was going to be about joy, and what joy means, and what the joy of being a Christian is. And we were seriously handing out these flyers to anybody and everybody that would take them. And of course, whenever you're passing out flyers, you don't really expect anybody to really stop and talk to you, because they're busy people in the middle of a massive city ready to go on to do their own thing. Mm-hmm. But this one woman, whom I hadn't really even noticed, I just kind of put something in her hand and she walked away, came back and asked us what it was. And so we started explaining it to her, and I said exactly what I've just told you. It was a church conference. And she said, well, would you want me to go if I were an atheist? And we said, I think we want you more than anybody else.
Yeah.
And so she said, okay, I'll show up. And she didn't show up for very much. She was just there for a little bit. But we got to talk to her afterwards and hang out with her some. And she's a fully grown woman, and she's actually an attorney. And so that's really neat because I'm interested in law, and I'm thinking about going and becoming an attorney or a public servant of some sort. So we had all sorts of similar interests to talk about, and she ended up deciding to sign up for a Bible study with us. And I mean, I've studied Spanish for 2 years. Compared to an actual native Spanish speaker, I'm lackluster for sure. And so I start freaking out about this Bible study that I'm about to have with an attorney who obviously knows more words than me.
Yeah.
And is a very, seeming to me at least, solid atheist. So I've got to bring out the big guns in this situation. And lucky for us, or fortunate for us, we actually had a grad student who was on this trip with us who was from Madrid, Spain.
Yeah.
Spanish speaker all her life, actually already has her PhD in Spain.
Oh my gosh.
And is here studying Spanish and English and licensure to teach Spanish here in the United States. And I asked her if she would like to help out with this Bible study, which really means lead the Bible study, because there was no way I could pull it off. And so she said, absolutely. And Soraya is the name of the Peruvian woman, and she's just awesome. But she came...
She was the lady that didn't believe.
Yes, she's the atheist.
Okay.
She came guns loaded on that first day, figuratively. She was ready to debate us on every single thing about the Bible and how this couldn't be credible, and, well, what about aliens? Why do people suffer?
Yeah.
Every single question that you usually get, or questions that you don't usually get hit with also.
Yeah.
And somehow we were able to field all of these questions and have reasonable answers for them. And nobody got angry. Nobody's blood began to boil or anything like that. It just was a good conversation for an hour and a half. And every single arrow that she was able to shoot at Christianity, I mean, that's a pretty violent metaphor, but we were able to shield and to stop. So that was definitely something I would say was the Holy Spirit working there, because I would not have been prepared to answer those questions. But nonetheless, she ended up signing up for a second Devo, and she came over for the second Bible study with us a couple days later. And before we even opened up the Bible or anything like that, she started just putting out her story to us and explaining why the series of circumstances in her life had shown her the absence of God, and why, because of the way she had been treated by other people, because of the way that her health had been, she could not see hope or the existence of a creator.
Yeah.
At least one that loved her.
Yeah.
And it was incredibly touching, but also really freaky for me, because here I am as a 21-year-old and I don't have any way to answer her problems or anything like that, and I'm just at my wit's end of what to say next. And then the Spanish grad student who was with us ended up sharing with Soraya her story. And it was amazing, because so much that had already been experienced by Soraya had also been experienced by our Spanish grad student. And even with all of that, she still found reason to believe in a creator. Yeah. And she found reason to love that one, and to want to serve him, and to want to travel in order to do it. And one of the most amazing parts of that story is that this grad student didn't know that she was going on this trip up until just 2 weeks before we left. Sheesh. She, out of her circumstances, ended up deciding last second to go. Yeah. And I just cannot be convinced that that was not God working to put Soraya together with our grad student. And it left us all teary-eyed in that one moment, and was one of the most special things. And I'm not going to try and end it like some cool movie or something where we baptized her that night or anything like that. But we have stayed in very close contact with Soraya over the last 7 or 8 months now since we last saw each other.
When was the last time you talked to her?
We text probably every other week. We'll send 2 or 3 messages back and forth.
That's awesome.
And she's doing well. They're always those long, almost like a letter type messages.
Previewing or mid whatever. Yeah.
Just everything that's going on. And so that's really just a wonderful thing. And God was working to create relationships that mattered right there.
It is the 3rd time I've heard that story. It's still awesome. Still like moving, and just every time you more detail or less detail, and like just Jesus, His guidance, His interceding for us. Like also Michael's not bad at Spanish. He orders in Spanish like a hothead all the time. But but okay, so in about this much time, explain to me this trip in Colorado, leading trek. Michael's a great leader. He lead these trips and trek and stuff, and just tell me the story. This story kind of scares me when I hear it, but just tell it. Yeah. Okay. This is an awesome story.
So this was another time where things were obviously outside of my control, and they worked. And that's one of the main things about being a trek guide. I mean, we've all got our own amount of pride and hubris, of course, but you feel pretty cool whenever you're a trek guide and you say that you're the expert of the mountains and all of these things. And then what's really scary is whenever you get up there and something happens and you are no longer the expert. Or you might be the expert, but that doesn't matter. And so we were on Mount Princeton 2 summers ago with my home church. So all of the kids I grew up with, this was my youth group, my youth minister and everything. And we were descending after having summited Mount Princeton, which is just known for having a very gnarly ridge that's very narrow and steep on both ends.
Yeah.
And there are ways that geography can really deceive you. And our lead guide ended up on our way down kind of trying to drop us down into the valley a little bit too soon. And it seemed like this was going to be a good spot to start heading off of this ridge and going down, but it turned out to be way steeper than we thought it was going to be. And it was just filled with loose rocks. Jeez. And I mean, we're talking basketball-sized loose rocks where you step on one and it starts rolling. And so we start going down in groups, and the first group of 5 or 6 go halfway down.
And how old are these kids?
I think the youngest was probably a freshman in high school, maybe a sophomore, and then the oldest were all seniors in high school. And I was in charge of the second group, and the first group doesn't go more than 100 feet down before realizing, okay, this was the wrong decision. But we've already gone 50 feet down, and we are making sure that we're kind of staying out of line with them, so that way we're not going to be kicking rocks onto them or anything.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it's getting more and more hairy every couple minutes. And so we all stop everything. The farther up groups were able to keep going down the ridge and find a safer way down. But we were in this just pickle of a spot where if we kept going down, if my group wasn't careful with how we moved, then we would be kicking just cannonball rocks at our friends down below us. And they were very in danger of slipping or falling, and as were we. And the thing gets worse whenever I looked up to my right and realized that coming along the bowl towards us was a big old storm cloud. And it was just it was across the valley from us, and then it started to roll this way, and it was about to come right on top of us. And I was sitting there thinking, we are about to be on top of wet rocks, now above tree line, getting zapped by lightning, slipping. It's everything possibly that could go wrong. I'm going to have to write all of my friends' parents about how they died, and it's just going to be awful. Hopefully not. But once again, God interceded. And so we were praying here, praying hard that storm cloud didn't come over us, and that God found something to do with it. And lo and behold, he does. Right as I could see the shadow of the cloud approaching us within 100 yards, and 60 yards, and 50, the wind changes directions. And the storm pushes up over the other side and goes over the ridge. and then wheels back around. And in about 5 to 10 more minutes, it comes back over towards us again. And we start praying again, saying, God, please don't let this happen again. And it changes directions, goes back over the ridge, and that happened 3 times.
Jeez.
Where we weren't touched by this storm. And we had to move very slowly and carefully, but everybody got down. Not a single person was hurt.
Jeez.
One kid had a small rock hit his backpack, and I mean, it was really loud, but it didn't hurt him in any way.
Yeah.
And everything worked out.
Yeah.
And like I said, that had a little bit to do with us being trained and being there, but 99% to do with just God seeing through the situation.
Yeah, that's awesome. Again, I said this on the last video, but like, I just wish everybody could be in this room. The way he's talking right now, like, I've heard this story before because he told to me, like, whenever we got back to school, he like got me emotional just thinking about like just how much God loves us and like how often he's just in the situation. So Michael, we are over on time already, which is awesome because you killed that. But yeah, in your walk with Jesus today, what are some things that you just want to leave people with that like keep you going? Like, what keeps you going on your walk with Jesus? Just like a motto or something that just constantly keeps you going that you feel like the Lord's put in your heart. Just keep your focus on Jesus.
Keeping my focus on Jesus. Just remembering how much he's done for us. And seeing how anytime that I can get proud or think that I've accomplished a lot or that I'm doing a lot for other people or something like that, that none of it amounts to a hill of beans compared to what Jesus has done for us. It pales in comparison to God's just unmatchable love. A motto, you asked me about a motto. This is something that I love to say to everybody. Dr. Cochran, my freshman Bible professor, actually said this one to us first, and it was that we should live in such a way that we wish it be made mandatory for others to live likewise. So if there's anything you do, you have to expect that I will do the exact same thing.
Wow.
If there's anything you don't do, then you can never expect me to do it.
Interesting.
So, I mean, an easy example is just picking up litter. If I don't pick up litter, I can never expect anyone to pick up litter.
Yeah.
And that's one of the creeds that I try to live by. Sweet. Obviously, don't do the greatest job of it all the time.
Nobody does. That's it. Michael Krupka, get to know him. He's awesome. Thank you so much. I love this guy.
Thank you, Braden.
Yeah, all about Jesus. Thank you.